Good evening. Israel is expected to file its report to the International Court of Justice in line with the judgment handed down nearly a month ago on its military offensive in Gaza. In the case brought by our government, Israel was ordered to preserve the lives of Palestinians and ensure a safe passage for humanitarian aid. But in February, South Africa called for a special intervention from the ICJ on the extension of Israel's military bombardment to Rafah. Ziyanda Ngcobo takes a look at the possible security implications here in South Africa.
In January, President Cyril Ramaphosa claimed that because of South Africa's stance in the conflict between Israel and Hamas, a covert election intervention and foreign meddling with the May 29 polls is likely. At the same time, International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor shared how she has had to beef up her security as a result of threats to her and her family believed to be from Israel. But just how much risk does South Africa face as a country from potential attacks from foreign agencies and Tel Aviv in particular? One former U.S. counterterrorism official believes Israel is likely to be more preoccupied trying to figure out how and why the October 7th attack happened without having been detected in the first place.
I don't believe there's a direct threat to South Africa from Israel. I mean, they have their hands full right now with the campaign against Hamas. And I think the issue between South Africa and Israel is going to be more at the diplomatic level and the political level in both countries than some type of security service threat from Israel to South Africa.
But Professor Jane Duncan, who's one of the authors of the 2018 high-level panel review report looking into the destruction of our state security agency, believes there is some cause for concern when looking at the history of the country's intelligence arm Mossad as being accountable only to the president and often described as aggressive.
This is not a passive intelligence agency we're talking about. It's highly active. We don't know whether they are involved at all in the threats to the minister and her family, but we have to take into account the nature of the intelligence agency that we're talking about and the way in which they've conducted themselves on the international stage. Even the academic literature describes Mossad as being centralized, unaccountable and risk-prone.
But just how much risk does South Africa face given its previous intelligence failures?
When we look at the picture and we look at the potential threats to South Africa in the wake of the ICJ ruling, and I would assess the risks as being not insignificant, we don't just simply need to focus on the legacy weaknesses of South African intelligence, which I think are fairly well known and are hopefully being dealt with, but we also have to focus on the weaknesses of Israeli intelligence as well.
Both analysts believe it's unlikely that Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu will take any action in light of the unfavorable tide of criticism and backlash that Tel Aviv faces from mainly the global south and other Western countries. However, at a political level, the role of the United States in supporting that nation could have an impact on the domestic politics there.
You know, the U.S. support for Israel right now has potential to really cause some divisions within the Democratic Party, and that could have an impact on the November elections. And this will be a calculus President Biden and his team has to figure out.
On Monday, Human Rights Watch said Israel has failed to comply with the legally binding conditions of ensuring the provision of basic services and the entry and distribution of fuel and life-saving aid in Gaza. The NGO says 2.3 million Palestinians are being starved and has put them in a worse position than before the ICJ ruling. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo in Johannesburg.